everyone, it's the Ticket to Christ, and we are still in the Love Never Fails series, Matthew chapter 5, verse 43. You have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Let's just pause there before turning the page so that we can really unpack this a little bit. What stands out for you? What is Jesus saying? And what specifically is he saying to do? I am getting from it that there might have been a saying back then, or there was a saying back then in those days in that society, whereby they were told, or people used to say, well, love your neighbor, hate your enemy, and I guess maybe they thought that was righteous for them to push a love for their neighbor but a hatred for the enemy. But Jesus says we're to take it even beyond that. We're to take it beyond that as his disciples, and to love our enemies. And he says how to love them. Bless those that curse you. Do good to those that hate you. Pray for those that despitefully use and persecute you. So it sounds to me that there's specific practical things that work depending on what this person is doing, the enemy is doing. And what by work, I mean satisfy, in my opinion, satisfy a specific spiritual principle. So if you bless a person that curses you, how do you think that person would feel? If somebody's cursing you and you truly bless them, how would they feel? If that person hates you and you did something good for that person, especially if it's in their time of need, how do you think that person would feel? If they're despitefully using you and persecuting you, and you pray for them, what do you think is going to happen? I just think that, these people who are your enemies treating you like this are on the demonic strongholds, and those demonic strongholds would need to break, I think, if you're applying these principles that Jesus is telling us to apply. Going beyond what the religious world does, beyond what the world does, and loving your enemies. Now let's turn and continue reading, and Jesus gives us a further explanation about this passage. Bear with me for a minute as I adjust this. It says, Jesus is saying, giving us why we're to do it. It says, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. So what is it that you're seeing here from this passage? What jumps out at you? For me, I noted that Jesus said in verse 45, for he maketh his sun, S-U-N, to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. And, just really zeroing in that even God, Father, who made and created the sun, makes, shines on both good and evil. And notice it says, maybe the children of your Father, which is in heaven. So just pulling us into the family fold as children of God. And Jesus is saying it shows yourself to be a child of God, because it shows that you're made of the same fabric of God, which is love. So it's a principle of being one with God, being just like God, being unified with him by being as he is, doing what he would do. loving the way he loves, which is unconditional. And so that's the position that we need to approach people with, even our enemies, with an unconditional love that is not based on their response. It's sort of like an example. A tree is a tree is a tree. No matter what its environment is, it's still going to be a tree. And and that's how we would like to be, meaning in the sense of that you're a child of God, no matter what your environment is, no matter who does what, they're not able to influence you and mold you into their image. Instead, you're molding or being molded in, or you're operating from the image of God, from who you are, which is a child of God. And I think that's what he's getting at here. It's operating from your position as a child of God, just in the same way as a tree operates in its position as a tree. It's just going to be a tree no matter what. You can yell at it, it's still going to be that tree. The same way, as a child of God, you're operating from your position in God, and you're going to just love because that's who God is. And so that's who you are. And then Jesus gives these great examples, of course, of, even people who are not saved, not Christians, they're sinners and they may be bad people. They love those who love them, so it doesn't make us any different than that. We're not doing anything special, in other words, by loving those who love us, because even these types of people love those who love them. You see gangs, gang leaders and people like that, who have a code and loyalty and to one another. So it doesn't make you different to love those who love you, but it makes you different. It makes you a child of God. It makes you someone who's operating from the fabric and cloth of who God is, from the Spirit of God, if you're able to love those who don't love you, say hello or good morning to even those who don't like you at work or in your neighborhood, being kind, being compassionate. So he's talking about it in verse 48 as being perfect, but I think it means beyond just how we think of perfection. I think it means be whole, be full of God, be full, be complete, even as God is complete. So it gives us this opportunity to have the completion that God wants us to have, to not want for anything. And this is not a picture of someone who is a victim. This is a picture of someone who is a victor. It's a picture of someone who has the victory and who's operating from a position of victory. So it's very encouraging when you really examine it. I hope that you pray through it and just really examine it even deeper. There's just so much. Every time I read it, I get something new from it, because it's a very deep and challenging passage. But I believe that it brings us into a deep intimacy with God, the heart of God, the core of who God is. I hope this blessed you, and I hope you have a great day. I'm going to drop a couple more scriptures in the bottom as well, on, loving your enemies, or loving, difficult people, or loving through challenging situations. So I hope that helps. Have a great day. Take care.